Years and years ago, there existed a certain species of video games, a certain style to making a video game, one that combined both a very serious gameplay that would often make you tear your hair out with a more comedic styling, usually conveyed through characters that look kind of ridiculous. It's the kind of approach you would see in games like Acclaim Hospital, and it's the same kind of approach that you see in Constructor. For all intents and purposes, Constructor is a video game in which you battle to the death in a competitive economical simulator based around a construction company that also has to run the buildings that it creates. It's sort of a mini city builder, only you're often not the only one building the city, you don't run the city, and unless you're playing on the easiest difficulty with just one opponent or no opponents, you're gonna have a fairly large required adjustment time. Constructor was made in the year 1997. It's no coincidence that that's also the year when Acclaim Hospital came out, which had a very similar aesthetic and a similar premise. Though in Acclaim Hospital, you did not have to worry that the AI opponents would crush you into oblivion. Here, that's a whole different matter. It was made by System 3, a studio that's been making games for a very long time. They even made the putty game, you know, the one that, if you believe certain conspiracy theories, was never actually released. At least not on the Amiga, where it was first announced and first reviewed. It was actually a very funny thing with the sequel to it, the modernized sequel to Putty, when it all came out that the original game, yeah, that was never actually released, apparently. I didn't have an Amiga back then, so I can't tell you for sure. But it was a funny situation. System 3 is actually in the habit of making sequels or remakes for titles they've released ages and ages ago, and Constructor is no different. I'm making this show today because the remastered, reconstructed, something version of Constructor is coming out today. There is a demo for it on Steam, it only has a tutorial, but it's available to play, to buy, to enjoy. And will you enjoy it? Well, I'm gonna go on a limb and say that yes, because that game will cover basically the core gameplay of Constructor with some enhancements, more content, and a much better control scheme. The control scheme is probably the only, I would say, part of Constructor that makes it kind of hard to enjoy at times. It was made before things like right-clicking worked so well, or before interface design was, how shall I put this? There's a saying that if you're more than 1 or 2 clicks away from something that's useful to the player, important to the player, that's 1 or 2 clicks too many. And the Constructor did suffer from this. It had menus within menus that you had to burr through to get to the essence of what you needed to do. Just moving some builders from one place to another. It was a bit tedious, but fun. And why was it fun? Well, let's break it down to what you have to do. You start off with your HQ. In it you have some builders, you have a foreman that guides those builders, some people that fix stuff, and the potential to buy some plots of land, plumb some houses on them, maybe some factories to make some wood, to make more concrete, to make all sorts of appliances and electronics that your future tenants may use to increase their livelihood, to foster a better generation in the future, which will then occupy other buildings you construct, which have a higher standard of quality for living, and who will in turn generate more money, will generate better people in the next generation, will generate more workers for you. It's sort of a microcosm where you hire the people who are the offspring of the ones that are living in the house that you built, and you have to sacrifice 4 of them to make 1 foreman. You can sacrifice 3 of them to make a builder. I'm not exactly sure how the sacrifice makes that person. It's a sort of maybe ritualistic murder to summon that other person from another dimension. I'm guessing. I suppose. It's not proven that that's incorrect in the game. In your job, you may believe that is to make the absolute best neighborhoods possible, with residential houses, with the occasional factory somewhere in a corner that doesn't actually bother the residents because they will complain about the noise, about the smells, about, oh, that thing's on fire, isn't it? Yeah, they'll complain that you set things on fire by accident or by negligence, or that you forgot sort of to actually put someone in a new house you built because maybe you were waiting on some higher level tenants and some giant roaches moved in. You could even have haunted houses, not as an attraction but with actual ghosts in them. Or worse, hippies. People that don't pay rent, people that don't want to leave, people that will just make everything worse. But the good part is they can work for you. For you see, Constructor wasn't just a game where you build things and strive to do the best you could. It's a game where you could kill people. It's a game where you could take your workers and go to beat the ever-loving crap out of anybody in your way, namely other workers from the opposing companies and maybe their foremen, their fixtures, their tenants. Sometimes I believe you could actually beat them up as well, though the police would get involved if there was a police station built on that map. And if you did commit, if it's proven that you committed certain crimes, you would get some black marks on your record from City Hall, and that will make life just unpleasant for you down the line. You also get those black marks if you didn't respect your tenants' wishes and, I don't know, continue to not plant trees in their garden or make them have children, but give them a house with a yard that's about 5 centimeters long, which apparently isn't enough for kids these days. I tell you, some people just cannot appreciate what they have. You can even upgrade their rooms individually so they'll complain less. Who's gonna complain that there's a factory somewhere down the road if you've got a giant jacuzzi and soundproofing, lots of soundproofing. But back to the idea of doing nasty things, you could hire hippies to squat in people's houses. You would just camp houses. You would see walls go up, construction walls go up. You would see their builders go in and slowly construct a new edifice, a new house. And the second that thing is built, you just collect your hippie, collect on that thing, and bam, you just stole their house. Well, you didn't steal it. You could steal it with a foreman if he wasn't interrupted by the other workers trying to kill him, but you would temporarily have that house completely occupied and basically useless to your opponent. Which is a good thing because your opponents can be dicks and they will build on your land. You can build on their land too, but yeah, it tends to play a bit better than you will at the beginning. It can also control things better because, it's the AI. And if hippies weren't your thing when it came to sabotaging your opponents, you could always call on the mafia, which would make offers they couldn't refuse, offers that started with a gun, shooting it, and the opponents dying, or things blowing up. Sure, to get to the mafia, you actually had to work quite a while to build up your construction company enough so that you have the ability to even construct a mob boss's headquarters. But once you did, the game got even more fun because by then you were in the middle of a war. Yeah, you may not have had zerglings or tanks, but this game could turn into a brawl quite often. It's a part of the game that was so liked that the developers decided to just go with mainly that for, maybe not exactly a sequel, but a sequel. Constructor Street Wars, or Mob Rule as it's better known, was released 2 years later, focusing mainly on the mafia. You would start out as a member of the mafia, you would have your gangsters all ready to go. You were still playing Constructor, but a sort of a lesser version of it where you couldn't customize the interior of your houses, but it had more of a focus on actually doing mafia stuff with beacons and other stuff I never actually fully understood because I didn't play that much. An actual sequel, Constructor 2, was in development, or at least it was planned, and it was gonna take place, according to Wikipedia, on different worlds, alien planets, and it would have the ability to infest victims with alien eggs, which sounds quite fun and may actually become a thing if the remastered version is actually successful. Now, if you want to play the original Constructor, it's on GOG right now for the price of €5.70, so it's about $6. It's also on Steam for €5. And then there's the sequel to Mob Rule, which is, well, it's actually free on Steam, though again it's maybe somewhat of a lesser game in certain aspects, but it still can be quite fun, and it does have somewhat better controls. But the new one is going to come out today. It's probably out already, and sure, it may cost $30, but hey, it's actually a good looking update to a game that's right now kind of 20 years old, and the demo was actually nice. Hopefully the final version will be as well.